Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories this hour. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to hold a news conference as protests grow over Israel's plan to take over Gaza City. A UN agency meeting on Gaza begins at 16 BST and called by all Security Council members except the US and Panama. This comes as Israel faces strong criticism from hostages, families and countries including the UK, France and Germany over its Gaza plan. Defence Minister Israel Katz says the condemnation will not weaken resolve, with Netanyahu outlining 5 goals including disarming Hamas and taking security control. Israeli military reports 2 projectiles likely fired from Gaza into Israel, with intercept attempts under review. Gaza's civil defense says 37 people were also killed today by Israeli fire, including civilians waiting for aid. Ukraine warns the upcoming Trump-Putin summit may seek to dictate terms as Zelensky says there is no path to peace without Kyiv at the table. European leaders rally behind Ukraine while Russia's Medvedev slams their interference. 3 swimmers have died after triggering unexploded ordnance at a banned beach in Ukraine's Odessa region. In Russia, Saratov region, a Ukrainian drone attack kills 1 person and damages homes and an industrial site. Bandits in Zamfara state kill 11 vigilantes and 2 policemen after ambushing a rescue team pursuing kidnappers in Adapa village. The attack is the latest in years of violence by criminal gangs terrorizing communities in northwest and central Nigeria. Firefighters contain a deadly blaze in France's Aude region, but scorching heat and strong winds threaten to reignite it. 1 person is dead, with dozens being injured, and 16,000 hectares remain burning amid the Mediterranean heatwave. Japanese fighter Hiromasa Urakwada dies from brain injury suffered on an August 2nd match, just days after his opponent died from similar injuries on the same event. The Japanese Boxing Commission will reduce title fights from 12 to 10 rounds. We start this hour in the Middle East, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to hold a press conference with international media in Jerusalem today, very, very shortly. This will mark Netanyahu's first meeting with the international press since the Israeli Security Cabinet's decision on Friday to expend military operations. We are hopefully showing you that live stream very, very shortly. The decision includes taking full control of Gaza City, a move that has raised serious concerns about the escalation of the conflict and its impact on the humanitarian situation in the region. The press conference is expected to provide insights into the Israeli government's strategy, including the justification for this aggressive military escalation and the potential long-term impact on Israeli defense and security. As I said, we will get that live stream to you very, very shortly, where Netanyahu will be addressing international media. These outlets will be attending the briefing, and it is anticipated that Netanyahu will face tough questions regarding the strategic objectives behind the decision, especially in light of global calls for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid to Gaza. The move to control Gaza City follows several days of intense military action in the territory, which has resulted in significant destruction and, of course, a rising death toll among Palestinian civilians. While Israel maintains the operation is necessary for national security and the demilitarization of Hamas, critics have warned of the humanitarian cost and the risks of further international isolation. International reactions have been mixed, with many countries expressing deep concerns over the impact of the expansion on civilian lives and the stability of the region. The United Nations has called for an immediate humanitarian corridor to provide essential aid to the people of Gaza. That's along with the international community also calling for a ceasefire. Israel's plan has been met with fierce criticism, as we've said, from both the hostages who still remain in Gaza, hostage families who still remain in Gaza, and of course several countries, including the United Kingdom, Germany and France. Germany, of which have now halted their arms to Jerusalem amid growing international criticism over the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We, of course, are running images right now of those of Palestinians getting their aid, that have echoed around the world, to much anger, to much upset. Hopefully we will be getting the Israeli Prime Minister and his statements on very shortly to hear from him and what he has to say from scrutiny from the international press. We're now joined by Ali M. Bushback to discuss this further. Thank you very much, Ali, for joining us here on the program. Ali, Netanyahu is set to address the media very, very shortly over as these protests intensify in both Israel and around the world due to Israel's escalating hostilities in the Gaza Strip. What do you make of these new plans to completely control the most populated area in Gaza, Gaza City, where around 1 million Palestinians still call home?
Thank you, Thomas. The thing is, Benjamin Netanyahu, he is facing several of a challenge, especially that tsunami of condemnation from a Western country and the wave of recognition the Palestinian statehood. So he's going to justify the expanding of the military operation in Gaza and fully control Gaza, especially Gaza City, which housed more than 1 million civilians in Gaza. And for worth mentioning that when Israel is going to reoccupy Gaza after withdrawal in the very beginning of January, due to ceasefire has been assigned between Hamas and Israel, or has been taken by Israel and Hamas, because there is no signature in this ceasefire. Most of the civilians have returned to their home, and despite it's demolished and despite the destruction, they establishing a tent and start surviving at that area. So that's complicated the situation, and that's limited the Israeli operation on the ground. And I guess the international community concerned about the casualties, especially civilians, after the scandal of humanitarian Gaza function, the Gaza humanitarian function, and there is a several of investigation, a news investigation and journalist investigation about how Israel deliberately targeting the civilians who came to collect the humanitarian aid. So the situation on the ground is completely terrible, Thomas. Since morning, Israel intends its aggressive and intense its military operation and airstrike, and that's resulted in several of casualties. Among of them, more than 30 civilians have been killed who's seeking for the food and the humanitarian aid in Gaza, and also north and south. Thomas, I guess the conference that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to conduct, he's going to show the plan and justify why he's going to invade Gaza City and fully expanding its military operation on the ground, and how he's thinking for the day one after the military operation in Gaza and after this war. Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to buy time by this step, and I guess he's trying to manipulating the international community and internal community, Israelis community, who's also against this step and this phase of war and for this invasion. And we have seen several of the protests inside Israel, in Jerusalem, in also in Tel Aviv. We have seen the families, the captive families, they are protesting, and we have seen that several of Israelis activists, they are invaded an Israeli television show and demanding and calling for end the war. So Benjamin Netanyahu, just his supporter in this step also Itamar Ben Gvir, who's also considered as a war criminal, and he's considered as a posting danger on the international community. According to several of Western countries, they imposed a sanction against him and prohibited to visit a several of Western country recently because his hate speech and insist for provoke the Israeli to attack Palestinian and to invade Gaza, and also his call for fully occupied Palestinian land. Was I mean here also Gaza Strip and also
Okay,
West Bank.
Ali, I'm very, very sorry to interrupt you, but we are getting these visuals coming in by the Israeli Prime Minister, and we are going to let our viewers hear them now.
And to do so again and again and again. It openly professes its goal to destroy the state of Israel. It subjugates Gazans, it steals their foods, it shoots them when they try to move to safe zones. And I think it's instructive that now many Gazans are fighting back. They're begging us, they're begging the world, free us, and free Gaza from Hamas. No nation can accept a genocidal terrorist organization, an organization committed to its annihilation, a stone's throw from its citizens. Our goal is not to occupy Gaza. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists. The war can end tomorrow if Gaza, or rather if Hamas lays down its arms and releases all the remaining hostages. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will have overriding security responsibility. A security zone will be established on Gaza's border with Israel to prevent future terrorist incursions. A civilian administration will be established in Gaza that will seek to live in peace with Israel. That's our plan for the day after Hamas, and let me summarize it. 5 principles for concluding the war. 1, Hamas disarmed. 2nd, all hostages freed. 3rd, Gaza demilitarized. 4th, Israel has overriding security control. And 5, non-Israeli, peaceful civilian administration. By that I mean a civilian administration that doesn't educate its children for terror, doesn't pay terrorists, and doesn't launch terrorist attacks against Israel. That's what we want to see in Gaza. So it's neither Hamas nor the PA. That's our plan. Given Hamas's refusal to lay down its arms, Israel has no choice but to finish the job and complete the defeat of Hamas. Now, we've done a great deal. We have about 70 to 75% of Gaza under Israeli control, military control. But we have 2 remaining strongholds, okay? These are Gaza City and the central camps in the Muasi. That's roughly, it's schematically presented here, but it's fairly accurate. Last Thursday, Israel's Security Cabinet, instructed the IDF to dismantle the 2 remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps. Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily. We will do so by first enabling the civilian population to safely leave the combat areas to designated safe zones. In these safe zones, they'll be given ample food, water, and medical care, as we've done before. And again, contrary to false claims, our policy throughout the war has been to prevent a humanitarian crisis, while Hamas's policy has been to create it. Since the beginning of the war, Israel has let in close to 2 million tons of aid. I know of no other army that has enabled such aid to go to the civilian population in enemy territory. Now, if we had a starvation policy, no one in Gaza would have survived after 2 years of war. But our policy has been the exact opposite. We let in, as I said, almost 2 million tons of aid and sent millions of text messages, millions of phone calls to Gazans to get out of harm's way. Yet in the last few months, Hamas has violently looted the aid trucks meant to get to Palestinian civilians. They deliberately created a shortage of supply. And the UN consistently refused, until recently, to distribute the thousands of trucks that we led into Gaza through the Kerem Shalom crossing. So our problems, we've had tons of uncollected food rotting on the Gazan side of the border because the UN was and still is unwilling to deliver all of it. Here are the tons and tons and tons of humanitarian aid that Israel let in to the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. It's just sitting there because it's not distributed. So now we're going to go around this obstacle. We are going around it by doing three things. One, can I show this, please? Okay. Designating safe corridors for humanitarian aid distribution. No, that's showing the problem, not showing the solution, but here it is. First, designating rather safe corridors for aid distribution. You can drive trucks there and you'll be safe. Second, increasing the number of safe distribution points managed by the Gazan humanitarian foundations. And three, airdrops. That's airdrops done by the Israeli Air Force, and we're inviting others to join us. The result has been a humanitarian surge, which we're coordinating with President Trump and his team, and hundreds of trucks have gone in recent days. This is preventing hunger, but it's not prevented the global campaign of lies that we have all witnessed. So in Gaza, despite Hamas's obstacles, 2 million people are now getting access to humanitarian aid. But I'll tell you who isn't. The only ones that are being deliberately starved in Gaza are our hostages. This is Evyatar David. Look at his hand, at his arm. He's being deliberately starved by these Hamas monsters. And look at the Hamas captor. Look at the difference. He's eating, and he's eating well. The purpose of this news conference is to puncture the lies and spread the truth, but that distortion has been propelled around the earth, almost the way that the Jewish people were maligned in the Middle Ages. Every massacre of the Jewish people was preceded by massive vilification. We were said to be spreading vermin to Christian societies. We were said to be poisoning the wells. We were said to slaughter Christian children for their blood. And as these lies spread around the globe, they were followed by horrific massacres, pogroms, displacements, finally culminating in the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust. Today, the Jewish state is being maligned in a similar way. Everything that I told you could be verified easily, but it hasn't. And the international press has bought hook, line, and sinker Hamas statistics, Hamas claims, Hamas forgeries, and Hamas photographs. For example, these three children. The first one is Osama al-Raqub. He is in Italy getting treatment because Israel got him out. That's what he looks like today. He has a genetic disease that damages the lungs and digestive system. It makes it hard to absorb nutrients and gain weight, okay? So Israel facilitated Osama's travel to Italy, where he got the medical aid that transformed his position. The second one is Abdul Qadir al-Fayumi. He suffers from a genetic neurological disorder, spinal muscular atrophy, a degenerative condition that causes muscle wasting, weakness, and severe weight loss unrelated to nutrition. This was the real cause of his frail appearance, not starvation. In fact, he was treated in Israel in 2018. Doesn't help because it's a congenital disease and it defies most treatment at least. The third one is the most celebrated one. This is a New York Times cover photo. It's on the front page of Muhammad Zakaria Ayub and his mother. Muhammad Zakaria Ayub is suffering from a genetic illness which you're familiar with. It's called cerebral palsy. His mother is well fed and his brother is healthy. I'm looking right now into the possibility of a governmental suit against the New York Times because this is outrageous. Of course, the correction was postage size. I don't know where it was buried. But this is outrageous. These are the three most celebrated photos, and they're all fake. It's the kind of malignant lies that were leveled at the Jewish people in the Middle Ages. We won't suffer. We won't allow it to go unchallenged, and this is the purpose of this press conference. I hope that you open your eyes to a simple fact. Hamas lies. Now you can ask me any question you want.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Could you give us, please, a timeline when you expect to conclude the new expansion of the new offensive? And if you can give us a few more details about how you're going to provide about this humanitarian surge and how GHF is going to be involved in this. Thank you.
Well, the timeline that we set for the action is fairly quickly. I mean, we want to, first of all, enable safe zones to be established, facilities to be brought to, so the civilian population in Gaza City can move out, as they moved out in Rafah, by the way. You remember in Rafah? There were 1.4 million people. People said they can't, they have nowhere to go and they're not going to move out. It took us, I think, about 8 days or 6 days to move them, and they all moved. There were practically no civilian casualties because they all left. And they went to the Moasi area that I showed you before on the map. We think we can achieve a similar result that safeguards the civilian population, at the same time enables us to go at the last stronghold, the most important stronghold of Hamas, which we haven't done so up to the war. I mean, we've been there, but we haven't taken it as a goal to dismantle the Hamas stronghold there. We do now. I don't want to talk about exact timetables, but we're talking in terms of fairly short timetable, because we want to bring the war to an end. This is how we bring the war to an end. As far as the surge is concerned, we're talking to the U.S. about additional measures, but we haven't waited. Because what we're doing, as I said, is designate safe corridors, allow, and expand the GHF distribution points, and we're trying to bring in more resources, hope to recruit some international organizations, maybe, God willing, the UN, if they ever decide to actually do something for the Palestinian people that doesn't go through Hamas. And third, increase the airdrops. The airdrops are important, but they're not the most important thing. The most important thing is ground routes that bring aid, a surge of aid to the Palestinian population, as far as we can, without letting Hamas loot it.
Prime Minister, 2 questions. Firstly, why is Israel not allowing foreign journalists into Gaza to report independently? And secondly, President Trump has said there is real starvation in Gaza. Do you disagree?
Yeah, on the first question, in fact, we have decided, and I've ordered, directed the military to bring in foreign journalists, more foreign journalists, a lot. There's a problem of assuring security, but I think it can be done in a way that is responsible and careful to preserve your own safety. So the directive has been since, when is it? 2 days ago. From what you're telling me, it hasn't yet been implemented, but it should be, because I think you should see it. And one of the things you're going to see is precisely our efforts to bring in Gazans, to bring in rather food to Gaza. You'll see the trucks that have been entered Gaza and are still waiting to be distributed. You'll see Gazans who are fighting Hamas. We haven't seen it since the beginning of the war. And that's a reflection of the fact that they know that we're approaching the end stage. And these people are, risking their lives and their families, but they say, we can't take it anymore, and they fight back. And the other thing you'll see is physical destruction. And the physical destruction is not because Israel is destroying structures with people in there. That's not what's happening. Israel, in fact, is clearing the population, as in Rafah. But the Hamas terrorists who may stay in those areas booby-trap just about every single building. Not every single building, but a lot of them. And every road, and every street, and every junction, every intersection. So one of the things that we do is we place basically old APC, armored personnel carriers, with tons of explosives, and we detonate them, and they set off all the booby traps. That's why you see the destruction. And we do similar things in the tunnels. The tunnels, these terror tunnels, we put TNT in them, and we detonate that after people have left. But they're under buildings, so the buildings collapse. That's why you see destruction. You see destruction not because we go after civilian populated areas, but in fact areas that have been cleared of civilians and are still rife with terrorists. And that's how we've been able to reduce actually the civilian casualties and increase, of course, the terrorist casualties. I very much appreciate President Trump's support through this entire seven-front war, his magnificent cooperation in the battle to stop the existential threat from Iran, his support throughout, and his support now. He says two things. He says all 20 hostages have to be released, and he says Hamas should not be there. And I think that he, like me, he recognized the fact that there have been deprivations in Gaza caused by Hamas. Hamas has been the cause of that. And what we have to do is overcome it. So we're working together to overcome it.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Is Israel working, proceeding in the belief, in the understanding that it can and will recover all 20 hostages alive militarily? Or is it proceeding in the belief or understanding that conditions of their captivity, Hamas strategy, will make that impossible?
Look, my goal is to get all of the 20 out alive and also all the ones who are not alive. In the beginning of the war, we were told by a very senior commander, he said, look, we have to get used to the idea that we're not going to see even one of them alive. And I disagreed. I said, we'll get most and possibly all of them if we apply judiciously both military pressure and political, diplomatic pressure. So far, out of 255 hostages, we got 205 out, of which 148 are alive. 148 are alive. We have 20 living ones left in the Hamas captivity, and 30 who are not alive, as I said before. If we don't do anything, we're not going to get them out. The option of just doing a war of attrition from defensive positions has not proved itself, and I think it will just, it won't get them out, but I think it will draw us into a protracted conflict that doesn't bring the war to an end. The move that I'm talking about, I think, has the possibility of getting them out. We're talking about how to, I don't want to go into details, but how to get the remaining hostages alive as we close in on Hamas. And there are various ways that I think, creative ways that this can be done, but again, I won't go into that now.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Two questions, please. You've just shown the horrific photo of Eviatar David, who's kept hostage in Gaza. We know that the hostages' days are numbered. So how will prolonging the war bring them home? And second question, you stated that Gaza would be passed to civilian governance that is not Hamas and not the Palestinian Authority. Can you specifically identify who this civilian governance would be? Do you have any concrete entities or individuals in mind? And is there a timeline for establishing this administration?
Yeah, well, I don't want to prolong the war. I want to end the war. And I think the other suggestions would have prolonged it. We may have gotten maybe a dripping of hostages, even though Hamas showed no willingness to do that. And then they just go on and on and on, and we'd have this endless. Unless you are willing to just say, Israel, capitulate, go out. And even then, I don't think we'll get all the hostages. And if we capitulate, it means that Hamas will rearm, regroup, and carry out all the threats that it openly professes every day, by the way. Every day they say, we're going to do the October 7th massacre again and again, and we're going to destroy the state of Israel. You can't leave them there, So we're not going to do that. So my goal is not to prolong the war. My goal is to end the war. And I think that prolonging the war means that many of them could be starved to death. That's exactly the point. I don't want that. As far as the specific partners for the civil governance of Hamas, we're actually, I think the 5 principles are generally widely accepted. And it's instructive that some of the Arab countries, quite a few of them actually, said that Hamas has to be disarmed. I think this is the starting point. And look at what is happening in Lebanon as a result of our action. The Lebanese government, the new Lebanese government, is talking about disarming Hezbollah. Who would have believed it? Well, some of us did. I did. And that's changing the Middle East, as I promised to do on the second day of the war. I think in this case, if we succeed in this effort to basically end the war by defeating Hamas, its remaining strongholds, there are several candidates. There are several candidates that we're talking about, several constructs. And it's a transitional period. It's a transitional authority. It's going to be there because we don't want to, contrary to what I said, we want a security belt, but right next to our border, but we don't want to stay in Gaza. That's not our purpose. At least not my purpose, and I openly state, including to those who disagree with me, and there are some who do. But I think that our goal is to make sure that Hamas isn't there, and that what replaces Hamas does not educate for terrorism, pay for terrorism, launch terrorism, but is willing to live in peace.
Okay, there you have it. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, saying his plan to take over Gaza is the best way to end the war and defeat Hamas. If you stayed with us and heard his words, he outlined a 5-principle plan to end the war. Those things are the disarmament of Hamas, the return of all hostages, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israel taking overriding security control in the Strip, and then, once all that is done, the establishment of an alternate civil administration that is not Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. During this press conference, Netanyahu reiterated that Israel does not have a starvation policy. He claimed to debunk some of the most viral photos that the media has put out of starving children in the Gaza Strip. When answering questions, he also said that he would start to let international journalists in with the accompaniment of the IDF. We're joined by Ali M. Bushback to get, he's an independent Palestinian researcher. He joins us live from Cairo. Ali, I just wanted to get some of what you made of that press conference just then. I don't know if you were watching it, however, the whole thing was centered around Hamas's lies, is what the Israeli Prime Minister had to say. Benjamin Netanyahu clearly not happy with how this war is being viewed by the international media. What are your thoughts on some of the Israeli Prime Minister's statements that he's just given to the international press?
Thomas, first of all, the signal of the language, it was by English language, so that's this conference is oriented for international community, not Israeli community. That's mean that Benjamin Netanyahu, he's trying to modify the image of Israel in front of the international community after the huge isolation from the international community and Western country, and several of countries, they are condemning Israelis' plan for invaded Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's reconfirmed about the aims of this invasion, and on Friday he released a statement also. He talked about the aims and the principle of this invasion. And he also talked about take over Gaza for the civil administration. And I guess as a several of experts, they are expected that Mohammed Abu Shabab, the person who's cooperated with Israel, who would be the holding Gaza after the Hamas had been collapsed or defeated. As well as that the most observable in his speech, for the first time, Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about the second day of the war. Before, he was never mentioned these things, and he was never mentioned the policy. That means maybe this is a sign that the war is going to be ended. As well as, Thomas, the thing says Benjamin Netanyahu, he talked about the military operation and as a significant solution.
Yes.
And we have seen this during the operation Guardians Charities that established in May 2025. Unfortunately, this military operation, didn't achieve to one single aims. The significant aims it was to release the hostages from Gaza. How many hostages since May up to today have been released? No one.
Yes.
Even the significant aims for this war to release the hostages. How many hostages have been released since the Israelis' operation?
Ali,
Or the military?
I'm sorry to interrupt you just now. We're also joined by another guest, Selina Ryan. She's a political analyst. She joins us live from Tel Aviv in Israel. Thank you very much, Selina, for joining us. Pleasure to have you here on the program. Unsure if you were tuning into that press conference by the Israeli Prime Minister, as Ali had just said, given in English to appeal to an international audience. His message was clear, however, during that 20-minute press conference, is that one shouldn't believe Hamas is lies. Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated that there is no starvation policy in Gaza, and saying that Israel is going to work hard in order to get humanitarian aid to the people that get it. This obviously counters other organizations that they claim, like the World Health Organization, like the United Nations Children's Fund, who have claimed rife malnourishment throughout the Gaza Strip. I just wanted to get your point of view on Benjamin Netanyahu's statements there to the international media that there is no starvation policy in the Gaza Strip under Israel.
Hi, thank you very much for having me, first of all. So I don't need to rely on what Netanyahu is saying, because just a few days ago, last week, I was in Kerem Shalom inside Gaza myself, and I saw with my own eyes all the piles of aid that are waiting there in an aid center, waiting for it to be collected by the UN and by other international organizations. Aid that is literally rotting in the sun. And he mentioned malnutritioned babies. I'm telling you, I saw piles and piles and piles of boxes full of baby formula, medicines, medical supplies. It's not only food. There's a lot of things that are just sitting there in the aid center, and this is just one aid center out of a lot of them, all across Gaza, where supplies are sitting in the sun in 30, 40 degrees, rotting, wasting away, from World Health Organization, from the United Nations, from UNRWA, from Egypt, aid from the UAE, from Saudi Arabia. I saw it with my own eyes. So when you're asking us and you're telling us that we are systematically starving the Gazans, ask why don't these organizations come and take the aid and take it to the Gazans? This is aid that has passed the Israeli checkups. It's just ready for distribution. So it's not about like who says what and who says who what exactly. It's about what we see with our own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes. I filmed it. I also posted it online. And there's many videos like this, many documentations that prove exactly the same. As to say there is a policy of starvation in Gaza, it makes no sense. No country that plans to starve a population. Sorry, just let me finish this idea. No country that plans to starve a population enters them aid via air, via sea, via land. There's no such thing. They get aid from every direction possible for the past 2 years.
Selina, according to these organizations, averages around 270 trucks per day that enter the Gaza Strip. However, humanitarian organizations say that at least 600 trucks daily are needed to meet the most basic needs that are happening in the Gaza Strip right now. What Netanyahu also spoke about is the continuation of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which the UN and other humanitarian foundations have said that over 1,000 people have been killed now, over 1,100 people have been killed. We had 37 today trying to claim aid from these US and Israeli-run centers. Your thoughts on the continuations and also the operations of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in their abilities in distributing aid in the Gaza Strip?
Okay, I'll just answer you one quick question. Who said that 37 people got killed today? Where does this information come from?
The Gaza-run health ministry.
Hamas. That's Hamas. So Hamas is saying every day that people are getting killed through the American aid method. Why? Because they cannot steal that aid. And also as to the international organizations that are saying that the minimum required for Gazans to have everything they need is 600 something trucks per day. Ask them, when they say that, they need to be asked why they don't pick up the aid that is sitting and rotting in the sun in the aid centers across Gaza.
Selina, I have to say, apologies, that the reason why we have to use those statistics is because Israel will not let international journalists check these figures of the people who have died on a daily basis. We do cite that they do come from the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. However, Netanyahu did say that there is a possibility of international journalists being now let into the Gaza Strip. Do you think that that is important so people can see what is really going on there? And what do you think they will really see?
Do you think it's responsible to allow journalists that are just basically civilians doing their job in an ISIS-filled zone? What do you think it will happen now if you allow journalists in an area filled with ISIS terrorists? Tell me. They're going to get killed, right? And who's going to get the blame for it? Israel, as always. So yeah, we didn't allow the journalists to be inside Gaza until now because it wasn't safe for them. It's still not safe for them. But because of all this mounting pressure, I don't know, maybe Netanyahu said we're going to allow it. I don't know. It's not a decision that has been made 100% yet, so I don't want to comment on it. But yeah, it was for security reasons and definitely for justified security reasons because it's a combat zone and it's a combat zone filled with terrorists that are embedded inside the civilian population. So you don't know who is who. And for example, let me tell you something. You're talking about journalists that are not affiliated to Hamas. Now, this morning, I was reading about a journalist. I want to tell his name. He is literally begging for help to be taken out of Gaza because Hamas wants to kill him. His name is Omar Abdrabou. He is begging on Twitter, on X, to be taken out of Gaza. He's been beaten almost to death twice in the past month and something, 2 months, and put in the hospital because he's reporting the truth from Gaza. He's reporting against Hamas. He's reporting like true numbers from the ground. And he almost got killed for it. So tell me, what do you think is going to happen to an American journalist or a British journalist or an Italian journalist when they go and start talking the truth that's not going to match Hamas's lies and propaganda?
Selina, I just, apologies, we are running out of time here. Benjamin Netanyahu just said that his plan to take over Gaza City are the best way to end the war. This is contradictory to the military chief in Gaza who said, who objected to this just a couple of days ago on Friday when it was approved by the Security Cabinet. Do you think this is the best way to end the war and get the hostages home, of course?
Me personally, I don't agree with any of them. I don't think this is a solution. I don't think this is going to end the war. It's not going to get the hostages home. Also, it needs to be mentioned that after Gaza City, something that Netanyahu doesn't say, but it's true, this is not the last Hamas stronghold. I don't know where he got that from and why is he saying this. A lot of Hamas is now located, and a lot of Hamas fighters are now located in Deir al-Balah and in Nusayrat, which is a little bit south after Gaza City, down south, also by the coast, by the sea. So this is not the last Hamas stronghold. This is not going to end the war. This is not going to bring the hostages home. I don't want to get into my personal opinion, but yeah, I think we're very far from ending the war. I think it's going to last for a long time because after Gaza City, it's going to come Deir al-Balah and Nusayrat. This is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Selina Ryan, for joining us on the program. Of course, as well, Ali Emma Bushback. Thank you very much for joining us. We will, of course, bring you all updates coming out of Gaza and Israel as we get them. Well, that is all that we have time for this hour, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.